60,000 years after the Kryloth Empire burned Earth into black dust, the galaxy moved on as if humans never existed, and every star, every moon, every drifting asteroid forgot the name of the species that once dreamed beneath blue skies. In council halls, alien scholars told younglings that humanity was only a myth, a strange ghost from a forgotten age, a species too weak to survive the fire that consumed them. And so, for 60 millennia, no one imagined they would ever hear anything from Earth again. But far beyond all mapped space, farther than the oldest empire dared travel, hidden behind a fold of broken reality, an arc flotilla drifted in a pocket dimension no species could detect, a silent grave that was never a grave. Inside those colossal living arcs, humanity had survived, but they were no longer the soft, warm-hearted beings the galaxy remembered. They had evolved in silence, in darkness, in crushing time that carved their minds into something cold and unbreakable. Generations lived without sunlight, without a planet beneath their feet, without a night sky to comfort them. They learned to adapt, to rebuild, to grow stronger than their ancestors could ever imagine. They studied the fire that killed them, studied the patterns of destruction, studied the physics of the weapon that turned Earth into drifting ash. And with every century, their hearts grew heavier, their voices colder, their minds sharper. Humanity became something new, something the galaxy was not ready to face. Then, in the dead stillness of an uncharted star system, something changed. Across every empire in the galaxy, from the small insectoid worlds to the vast reptilian dominions, ancient senses began to scream. It started with a faint thump, like a soft knock on the edge of existence. Alien scientists watched the readings with confusion because the frequency was impossible. It was steady, organic, rhythmic. A heartbeat. A human heartbeat. Alarms echoed in the Kryloth royal fortress as the Emperor rose from his crystal throne, disbelief tightening his throat. For 60,000 years they believed humans were dead, burned, erased. The Emperor whispered, voice trembling for the first time in his long reign, "This cannot be." But the universe did not care for his denial. A second signal followed, clearer, stronger, wrapped in a frequency that resonated across wormholes, subspace layers, and deep-time transit channels. It was a voice. Calm, slow, ancient, older than any empire alive today. The voice spoke only 3 words, "We have returned." And the galaxy trembled. In deep space, shadows shifted. Stars flickered. Ancient species that once mocked humanity felt an old forgotten fear crawling up their spines. Across council chambers, ambassadors stared at each other with widening eyes. The impossible had become real. The dead had spoken. Humanity, extinct, erased, forgotten, had sent a message. But it wasn't a cry for peace. It wasn't a call for negotiation. The tone carried no warmth, no softness, no hope. It felt like a closed door, a locked chamber, a cold hand gripping the heart of the galaxy. Every empire felt the meaning inside the message. Humanity did not survive by accident. They evolved for a reason. For 60,000 years, they sharpened themselves like a blade forged in darkness, a blade cooled in silence, a blade hungry for justice older than every kingdom in existence. And the Kryloth Emperor suddenly understood the truth he had ignored for millennia. When they destroyed Earth, they believed they ended a threat. But they had only delayed it. The humans who survived the fire were no longer the species the galaxy once knew. They had become a storm waiting to return. And now that storm had awakened. Sensors blared louder, readings spiked beyond all limits, and the Emperor watched with horror as an enormous shape flickered into real space. An arc ship, bigger than his capital moon, covered in flowing metallic veins that pulsed like a beating heart. The ship's surface rippled as if it was alive. The Emperor stepped back as a single thought echoed in his mind. What have we unleashed? The ship opened its front hull like a pair of colossal wings, revealing a blinding core of white light that twisted reality around it. For a moment, the Emperor saw something impossible. Millions of human eyes glowing inside the light, staring straight into the heart of his empire. And then the signal repeated. Calm, slow, ancient, we have returned. The galaxy fell silent. Because this time, humanity had not come to talk. They had come to finish a war 60,000 years old. Across the galaxy, panic spread like cold smoke as alien leaders realized the signal wasn't a glitch, wasn't a cosmic echo, wasn't a remnant of a dead civilization, but a living message from a species everyone thought had vanished. In every empire, ancient archives opened, dusty holograms flickered, old war records played again, and the Kryloth attack on Earth resurfaced like a wound tearing itself open. Leaders saw again how Earth burned, how oceans boiled, how cities turned to ash, how billions died without mercy. And now, 60,000 years later, the ghosts they created had stepped back into reality. In the Council of 12 Suns, the oldest reptilian senator watched the data in silence. His scales trembled as he whispered, "No species returns after 60 millennia, unless they never stopped preparing." Other empires tried to calm themselves, but suddenly the darkness in space rippled, and gigantic shadows appeared in 16 different regions at once. Humanity didn't return with one ship. They returned with an entire armada. No, something greater than an armada. Because these were not normal metal ships. These were living titans, grown in silence. Alien astronomers stared in horror as the ships moved like creatures, their metallic surfaces breathing in slow waves. Their hulls didn't reflect light, they swallowed it. Temperature sensors failed. Gravity maps distorted. Even time readings shook as if humanity's technology could bend the rules of physics themselves. The first ship to appear near the Zalos Empire drifted into view like a silent nightmare. Their scanners identified its size, bigger than 3 planets combined. The Zalos general collapsed onto one knee. "This is not a ship," he whispered. "This is a star that learned how to move." And still, not a single shot fired. Humanity did not attack. Humanity did not speak again. They simply existed, quiet, cold, unblinking. And the silence hurt more than any weapon. In the far west of the galaxy, the insectoid Vexor Queen trembled as she opened a private transmission. A single human silhouette appeared, tall, thin, almost carved from light. She tried to speak, but her throat froze. The human figure lifted its head, and though its eyes glowed faint white, she recognized something terrifying inside them. Not hatred, not rage, something worse. Memory. Humans remembered everything the galaxy had done. The human figure spoke only one sentence: "Do not interfere. The debt is not with you." Then the transmission ended. No threat, no promise, no emotion, just truth. On the other side, the insectoid queen collapsed, her limbs shaking. "If they show us mercy," she whispered, "imagine what they intend for the Kryloth." In the Kryloth Empire, the Emperor watched his fleet scramble in fear. War generals yelled orders, activating planetary shields, deploying cruisers, powering ancient cannons. But nothing felt enough. They were preparing for a species they believed weak, soft, emotional. Yet the beings returning from the darkness looked nothing like the humans they once murdered. They were taller. Their bodies radiated faint energy. Their skin reflected starlight like liquid silver. Their hair drifted in slow motion, not moved by air but by some inner gravity. They looked like the final evolution of a species that had survived fire, isolation, extinction, and time itself. The Emperor clenched his fists, trying to steady his breath. "They cannot destroy us," he said. "We ended them once." But his voice trembled. His advisors saw it. His guards felt it. And the galaxy sensed the truth. Kryloth fear was real for the first time in 60 millennia. The alien scientist who first decoded the heartbeat signal continued analyzing humanity's armada. When she magnified the flagship's core, her hands froze. Inside the glowing center, she saw cities. Entire human cities. Millions living inside the ship, walking through floating bridges of light, ancient trees glowing blue, children running across metal that looked like living vines. Humanity didn't build ships. They built worlds. A lump rose in her throat. Tears slipped down her cheeks. They carried Earth inside them, she whispered, for 60,000 years. Suddenly, she felt an emotion she hadn't felt since childhood: grief. Because the galaxy took everything from these people. And still, somehow, they endured. Far away, in the drifting emptiness between stars, another human ship glided silently past a dying sun, and alien telescopes captured the symbol on its surface, an ancient, burned silhouette of Earth. Just the outline. Simple. Broken. Powerful. The message was clear. Humanity had not forgotten their home. Humanity had not forgiven anyone who destroyed it. And as the Kryloth Emperor stared at the symbol on every ship, he felt something he never imagined he would feel in his lifetime: regret. The regret of a mistake so old, so vast, that no apology could reach across 60,000 years. For the first time, he understood the message. Humanity did not come to prove power. Humanity did not come to negotiate. Humanity did not come to talk. Humanity came to finish something the galaxy should have never started. And in the Emperor's chest, a cold thought formed: this is no longer war. This is a reckoning. As humanity's colossal living warships drifted into the galaxy like silent planets born from darkness, every empire held its breath. Not because the humans attacked. Not because they threatened. But because they moved with a stillness that felt older than fear itself. A stillness that made entire star systems feel too loud, too bright, too alive. Alien fleets watched from a distance, trembling, because the human armada did not travel like machines following coordinates. They moved like predators following memory. Their paths were too perfect, too clean, too straight, as if they knew every inch of space they once crossed 60,000 years ago. In the Zevran Nebula, an alien scout ship hovered quietly, observing one of the massive human vessels sliding through the gas clouds. The alien captain whispered to his crew, "Do not provoke them. Do not scan them." But fear makes hands shake, and a young crew member accidentally activated a full-spectrum scan. The beam shot out like a thin needle of light and touched the human ship's surface. What happened next broke the galaxy's understanding of physics. The scan didn't bounce back. It didn't penetrate the hull. It didn't even disappear. It simply folded. The scan's light curved backward, bent around itself, multiplied, twisted into a spiral, and returned to the alien ship carrying impossible energy that their shields could not handle. The scout ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It didn't shatter. It turned into floating dust. Fine, soft dust that drifted into the nebula like snow. No sound. No fire. No debris. The human ship didn't even react. It did not slow. It did not turn. It simply moved forward, as if the death of the scout ship was too small to acknowledge. When news of the incident spread, empires froze in horror. No one dared scan again. In the ancient star temple of the Arvan priests, the oldest priest trembled as he read the energy signatures. His skin cracked like dry stone, and he whispered, "No machine can do this. Only a species that touched the edge of existence and came back could command this power." Meanwhile, the human armada continued their silent march toward Kryloth-controlled space. Every empire watched their screens, map markers blinking like a growing shadow spreading across the galaxy. The way humanity moved felt wrong. They did not drift like ships. They glided like memories. They didn't adjust course. They didn't accelerate. They didn't communicate. They behaved like a force inevitable, like a storm returning to the place where it was born. The Council of 12 Suns held an emergency session. Alien leaders screamed, argued, begged each other for answers. Should we help the Kryloth? Should we surrender? Should we hide? But one elder silenced them all with a trembling voice. You cannot hide from a species that survived extinction. You cannot fight a species that conquered time. We must not interfere. Across the galaxy, children asked their parents, "Are the humans monsters?" The parents had no answers. The truth was too heavy for anyone. On the Kryloth homeworld, the Emperor watched the incoming trajectory of the human fleets. His advisors begged him to launch a preemptive strike, to shut down the wormholes, to activate ancient weapons. But nothing felt enough. The Emperor stared at the hologram of Earth's broken silhouette etched on the human flagships. The symbol glowed like a scar across space. He whispered, "We killed their planet. We killed their sky. What else did we expect?" His voice cracked, not with fear of death, but fear of a wrath older than his empire. Meanwhile, Inside the human flagship Oblivion Prime, millions of humans walked among shimmering halls shaped like roots of a metallic tree. They did not speak loudly. They did not cheer. They carried sadness deeper than stars. They were not here for conquest. They were here for closure. An old human elder stood near a viewing platform, her eyes glowing faint white like the rest of her evolved kind. A young human child tugged her sleeve. "Are we going home?" The elder stared into the endless night of space. "We no longer have a home," she whispered. "But we have a promise." The child held her hand tighter. "A promise to who?" The elder exhaled slowly, her voice cold as ancient stone. "To the ones who died screaming under burning skies. To the mothers whose voices went silent in fire. To the children who never learned what morning looks like." Her grip tightened. "And to Earth, our Earth, who waited 60,000 years for us to keep that promise." The human fleet approached the outer rim of Kryloth space. Millions of alien sensors shut down automatically, unable to handle the distortions caused by the ship's presence. Stars flickered. Quantum tunnels collapsed. Time dilation ripples spread across nearby systems like quiet waves. And still, humanity said nothing. Their silence felt heavier than war drums. The Kryloth Emperor watched the first human ship emerge from the void like a planet-sized shadow stretching across his star. The night sky turned white with the glow of human engines. The Emperor finally understood the truth. This was not just a march. This was not war. This was humanity walking toward the grave of their world, and toward the ones who dug it. And nothing in the galaxy could stop them anymore. The first strike came not from humanity, but from the Kryloth themselves, driven by fear so old and so deep that even their war generals could not hide it. In the throne hall, alarms flashed red across the crystal pillars, and thousands of Kryloth warships launched into the sky, their engines screaming like dying beasts. The Emperor watched them rise, hoping that overwhelming force might slow the nightmare marching toward them. In every direction, Kryloth fleets formed defensive lines. Massive walls of metal, thousands of cannons, ancient superweapons reactivated after dormant millennia. Their commanders shouted, "Fire everything!" The sky ignited. Millions of plasma beams shot forward, hundreds of torpedoes streaked across the void, gravitational warheads twisted space, and forbidden weapons that had not been used since the First Era burst open like collapsing stars. The Kryloth unleashed their entire military might in a single breath. And yet, humanity did not react. Their ships did not dodge. They did not activate shields. They did not turn away. The human fleet simply drifted forward, calm, slow, indifferent. The first wave of Kryloth fire hit the human armada, and nothing happened. Nothing. The beams touched the ships, rippled like soft waves against an ocean of light, and were swallowed by the hulls as if the ships were drinking the energy. Torpedoes lost momentum, froze in place, and dissolved into thin white smoke. Gravitational warheads bent inward and collapsed themselves. Time-twisting weapons flickered and vanished as if embarrassed by their own weakness. The Kryloth generals stared in horror. Shields can't be that strong. But this wasn't a shield. It was rejection. Reality itself refused to let the Kryloth touch humanity again. The second wave of attacks came. Then the third. Then the 10th. But every weapon fired, every missile launched, every beam unleashed simply melted into silence the moment it reached the human ships. It was as if the universe had chosen a side, and it wasn't the Kryloth. Across the galaxy, alien species watched the live feeds with trembling hearts. Even the cold-blooded empires, who had never feared anything, felt a strange ache in their chests. This wasn't a battle. This wasn't resistance. This was inevitability. Inside the Kryloth command station, a young officer whispered, "We destroyed them. How did they become this?" No one answered. They all knew the truth. Humanity had evolved beyond revenge. They had become the storm that does not stop to explain itself. Then, without warning, humanity responded. Not with fire. Not with fury. Not with noise. A single beam of silent white light extended from the human flagship's core, thin as a hair, quiet as a calm breath, moving so slowly that it appeared peaceful. The Kryloth generals leaned forward, confused. The beam touched the First Fleet, and the entire First Fleet evaporated. No flames, no shockwave, no screams. Thousands of ships turned to fine white dust in perfect silence, drifting like snow across the black sky. The Emperor collapsed back onto his throne, shaking, unable to speak. His guards watched in frozen terror. What technology is this? One whispered. But deep inside, they all understood. It wasn't technology anymore. It was evolution crafted by suffering that lasted 60,000 years. Galaxy-wide transmissions broadcast the moment. Billions watched as the most powerful fleet in Kryloth history vanished with the gentleness of falling ash. In the Arvan temple, the stone priest fell to his knees and whispered, "This is not war. This is punishment written into the stars." The human ships did not speak. They did not celebrate. They did not accelerate. They simply continued forward, their silent march carving terror through every system that witnessed the fall. Inside the Kryloth palace bunker, the Emperor's daughter watched the broadcast and felt tears stream down her scaled cheeks. "Father," she whispered, "we should beg for mercy." The Emperor shook his head slowly, voice breaking. "They did not come for mercy. They came to show us what we created." But even as fear swallowed the Empire, something heavier rose inside the humans themselves. Inside Oblivion Prime, a young human man named Kale stood before the giant viewing window, watching the Kryloth fleets fade into dust. He didn't smile. He didn't feel victorious. He felt the weight of 60,000 years pressing on his heart. An old memory flickered, images of Earth burning, oceans boiling, cities collapsing. He saw children running through smoke, parents screaming, skies turning red. And he whispered, voice trembling, "We should have been there, we should have saved them." Behind him, an elder placed a hand on his shoulder. "We could not save the past," she said softly, "but we can honor it." Kale's eyes glowed with sorrow and ancient fire. "By destroying them." The elder shook her head slowly. "By reminding the galaxy what happens when you try to erase a species." Outside, the human fleet crossed deeper into Kryloth space. Stars dimmed as they passed. Gravity swelled behind their engines like whales moving through dark oceans. And for the first time since the destruction of Earth, the galaxy understood the emotion inside humanity. Not rage, not hatred, but mourning so vast and so old that it changed the shape of their souls. And humanity's silence carried a message more terrifying than any war cry. "We did not return to kill you. We returned because you killed everything we loved." And the next moment would decide whether the Kryloth would survive, or vanish forever. Did I end the shattered calm after the First Fleet turned to drifting white dust? The Kryloth Empire scrambled to understand how a species they believed extinct had returned with power no empire could measure. Laboratories glowed, data screens flickered, ancient records reopened, and terrified scientists sifted through 60,000-year-old archives searching for answers. That was when a trembling historian named Valek uncovered something the galaxy was never meant to see. His hands shook as he opened the memory vault, a forbidden archive sealed since the day Earth burned. Dust rose in the dim vault light, and ancient holograms flickered awake with a low hum that felt like the whisper of a ghost. Valek stared at the first recording. It showed the Kryloth High Council from 60 millennia ago, their faces young, arrogant, confident. One counselor spoke with a cold smile. "The humans are progressing too fast. Their adaptability is dangerous." Another added, "If they reach the level predicted by the Oracle Stones, they will surpass all known species." Valek swallowed hard. The room's temperature felt colder. He tapped the second hologram. A prophetess stood in a red-lit chamber, her eyes glowing with cosmic ink. She whispered, voice trembling, "One day, humanity will rise beyond all limits. They will become the species that commands the stars." Silence followed. Then the prophecy turned darker. The prophetess choked, her body shaking as if the vision was burning her mind. "They will rule the galaxy, unless we strike first." The counselors exchanged glances. Their leader leaned forward. "How long before this future arrives?" The prophetess whispered, "A few thousand years." The leader turned to the others. Then we must erase them now. And with those words, the fate of Earth was sealed. Valek stepped back from the hologram, bile rising in his throat. His empire had not attacked Earth because it was dangerous. They attacked because humans had potential. The Kryloth destroyed an entire planet out of fear. Not justice, not war, not defense. Fear. He opened the final recording, and his breath caught in his chest. The hologram showed Earth burning. Not from a battle. Not from an invasion. But from a single weapon, the Celestial Ember, a planet killer no longer used. A weapon so cruel that even the Kryloth had banned it centuries later. He watched the oceans boil, watched continents split, watched billions die in silence. He watched Earth break like fragile glass. The prophetess words echoed behind the images. What you destroy today will return to destroy you. Valek fell to his knees as the truth collapsed onto him. We killed them because we were afraid, he whispered, choking on the words. We killed children who had done nothing. We killed a world that only wanted to live. Tears slipped down his scaled cheeks. His hands trembled violently as he activated a galaxy-wide emergency transmission, something no historian had ever dared to do. The recording beamed out to every empire, every council, every world. Billions watched in silence as the truth unfolded. Across the galaxy, shock spread like frost. The reptilian nations hissed in disbelief. The insectoid empires screamed. The aquatic federations covered their faces in shame. Even the machine civilizations paused, their cores trembling with calculations of guilt. The galaxy finally understood. Earth was not destroyed because humanity attacked first. Humanity never attacked anyone. The Kryloth had committed the greatest sin in galactic history, the preemptive extermination of an entire world, based on fear of a prophecy. And now the prophecy had become reality. Inside the Kryloth palace, the Emperor watched the broadcast replay over and over, each time feeling his heartbeat grow heavier. His guards stood frozen, unable to breathe. His daughter stared at the screen, whispering, "We murdered an entire planet." The Emperor's legs weakened. He sank slowly to the ground, whispering a truth no ruler had ever admitted. We deserved for them to return. Meanwhile, deep inside Oblivion Prime, the Human Council watched the same transmission. But there was no triumph in their faces. Only pain. Only memory. Only grief that never healed. A young human woman named Ceres clutched a small metal pendant shaped like Earth, a family relic passed down for 60,000 years. She whispered to her mother, "They finally know what they did to us." Her mother's eyes glowed faint white as she held Ceres' trembling hands. "Knowing does not erase what happened," she said softly. "But it means the galaxy will never lie about our story again." In the ship's great hall, thousands of humans gathered in solemn silence. They didn't cheer at the galaxy's shock. They didn't celebrate the revelation. They simply stood together, carrying the collective weight of a planet that no longer existed. Then the stars outside shifted. Space rippled. The human fleet continued moving toward the Kryloth homeworld, quiet, steady, unstoppable. And now, every species understood why humanity had returned. Not for conquest. Not for terror. Not for glory. But for justice older than any empire alive. Because Earth had waited 60,000 years for this moment. And humanity was finally ready to collect the debt written in fire as the galaxy watched the truth of Earth's destruction spread like a cold wind through every star system. The human fleet finally crossed into the heart of Kryloth space, gliding like silent titans born from grief and forged in cosmic darkness. The Kryloth military scrambled in panic, deploying planetary shields that shimmered across their world like trembling domes of light, activating ancient fortresses buried under their crust, awakening old war machines that had slept for thousands of years. But deep down every soldier, every general, every leader knew none of it mattered anymore. Humanity had come too far, carried too much pain, and evolved too far beyond the reach of any weapon. On the surface of Kryloth Prime, cities fell silent as the sky darkened. Massive shadows covered their suns as humanity's largest warship, Oblivion Prime, descended from the void. Its hull stretched across the sky like a living continent, pulsing with a faint white glow that felt like an old heartbeat returning to claim its final truth. The Kryloth civilians looked up, trembling, some collapsing to their knees, others clutching their children tightly. Even the strongest among them felt something primal inside their bones, a fear older than their species, older than their empire. Inside the great palace, the emperor stood before a massive window, staring at the descending human ship, his throat tight, his voice barely a whisper. "We destroyed their world," he murmured. "Now they have come to show us what we created." Then, something unbelievable happened. The human ships opened their sides like glowing petals, and from the light, human ground forces emerged. But these were not soldiers. Not in the old sense. They walked with slow, graceful steps. Their bodies tall and luminous, their skin reflecting shards of starlight as if they carried entire galaxies inside their cells. They did not wear armor. They did not carry weapons. Their hands were empty, open, calm. Yet the moment they stepped onto Kryloth soil, the ground shook, not from weight, but from presence. The first Kryloth soldiers aimed their weapons, trembling violently. A commander shouted, "Hold fire. Do not provoke them." But fear moves faster than orders. One terrified soldier fired. The beam shot forward, bright, powerful, lethal. It reached the nearest human, and dissolved into soft white mist. The human didn't even blink. The soldier dropped his weapon, collapsing as tears streamed down his face. He whispered, "What are they?" The human turned its head slowly, eyes glowing faint silver. Its voice carried no anger, no hate. It echoed like distant thunder shaped into words. "We are what you made us." That single sentence spread across the battlefield, crawling into the hearts of everyone who heard it. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't revenge. It was truth wrapped in 60,000-year-old sorrow. The humans continued walking. With each step, Kryloth defenses malfunctioned. Cannons powered down. Missiles refused to launch. War machines collapsed like dying beasts. The planet itself seemed unwilling to fight. A Kryloth general, known for his brutality, ran forward and fell to his knees before the humans, screaming, "Please, please stop. We surrender." The human nearest to him lifted a hand. Not to strike. Not to punish. But to touch the general's forehead gently. The general gasped as a surge of memories flooded him. Images of Earth before its fall. Children laughing under warm sunlight. Oceans blue and calm. Forests green and endless. Then the images turned dark. Cities burning. People screaming. Skies turning red. Oceans boiling. He saw mothers holding their children as fire swallowed them whole. He saw fathers trying to protect their families with their bare hands. He saw humanity's final moments. The general sobbed uncontrollably, gripping the human's legs as if begging forgiveness from a ghost. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." The human's glowing eyes softened with a grief deeper than any emotion known to the galaxy. "We did not come to destroy you," the human said quietly. "We came to show you the pain you buried." Behind them, more humans walked across the battlefield with slow calm, each step making mountains tremble, each breath reshaping the air. Cities flickered. Skies dimmed. Even the stars above Kryloth Prime felt distant, as if afraid to shine too brightly. Meanwhile, in the palace courtyard, the emperor's daughter, young, terrified, ran toward the humans with shaking hands raised. "Please," she cried out, "don't kill us, please." A human woman stepped toward her. Her eyes glowed like molten silver, but her face carried a sadness older than death. She knelt down, placing a gentle hand on the princess's cheek. "We are not here to kill you," she whispered. "We know what fear feels like." The princess trembled, her voice breaking. "Then, what do you want?" The human woman looked at the sky, at the hovering titans, at the shifting light, at the weight of forgotten history pressing down on the planet. "We want the galaxy to remember what was lost," she said, "and to understand what fear created." With each word, a heavy, aching truth vibrated through the air. The Kryloth soldiers lowered their weapons. Civilians fell to their knees, crying. Children clung to parents. And across the galaxy, billions watched the transmissions with hearts pounding. This wasn't domination. This wasn't conquest. This was grief walking. This was mourning taking form. This was a species standing on the soil of the empire that murdered their world, and choosing to show their pain instead of unleashing their rage. Humanity's true face was not wrath. It was sorrow deeper than any black hole. And that sorrow scared the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. The sky above Kryloth Prime hung heavy like a final judgment waiting to fall, but humanity did not strike, did not burn cities, did not unleash the power that erased fleets like chalk dust. Instead, their silent presence crushed the empire more than any weapon ever could. Streets were filled with trembling Kryloth citizens kneeling before luminous human figures who walked through their capital with slow, steady steps that felt like centuries of grief pressing into the ground. Inside the royal palace, the emperor waited in the throne hall, but he no longer sat tall and proud. He stood hunched, trembling, thousands of years of sin and fear weighing on his shoulders as he stared at the door where humanity would enter. The massive doors opened without sound. A single human stepped into the hall, Commander Seraph Ashbourne, her tall form glowing with soft white light, her eyes ancient with pain that no immortal could understand. She did not look like a soldier. She looked like a memory given shape. The Emperor's guards collapsed to their knees, unable to breathe under the pressure of her presence. The Emperor forced himself to stand, but his legs shook so violently that he stumbled forward and dropped to his knees before he could speak. His voice cracked, broken. I do not ask for mercy. I know we do not deserve it. Seraph Ashbourne looked at him with an expression that was neither anger nor pity, only a grief so vast it seemed to fill the entire hall. Mercy is not what we came for. The Emperor closed his eyes as tears slid down his scaled face. Then take revenge. Do what you must. End me. End my empire. Seraph stepped forward, her glowing hand lifting slowly, gently touching the Emperor's forehead, not as an executioner, but as someone placing a memory into a fragile mind. The Emperor gasped. Images flooded into him, Earth before its death. Children racing along beaches, laughing in warm wind. Families gathered under blue skies. Cities glowing gold under sunrise. Music, color, life. Then the vision shifted. Fire. Screams. Oceans turning to steam. Skies splitting apart. Entire continents burning. Mothers clutching their children, begging the heavens for one more breath. Fathers running through collapsing streets searching for lost loved ones. The faces of billions fading into ash. The Emperor felt each death, each scream, each heartbeat fading. The pain shattered him from the inside. He collapsed fully, shaking uncontrollably, crying like a child who finally sees a nightmare he created. We killed them. We killed them all. We killed your world, he sobbed. Seraph knelt and raised his chin, forcing him to look into her glowing eyes. Death would end your fear, she whispered, voice cold as ancient stone. We have not come to end it. The Emperor stared at her in horror. Then, what is our punishment? Seraph slowly stood, her presence towering over him like the shadow of 60,000 years of grief. You will live, she said. And you will watch. The Emperor trembled violently. Watch, what? Seraph turned her gaze toward the city outside, where millions stood in stunned silence. Your name, she said, will be erased from every map, every archive, every history. Your empire will vanish from galactic memory as if it never existed. Her words were quiet, but the hall felt like it shook under their weight. You destroyed our world to erase our future, she continued. Now we will erase your past, not through death, but through forgetting. The Emperor's heart shattered. For a species built on domination, on legacy, on pride older than most galaxies, being forgotten was a fate worse than extinction. Please, he whispered, voice barely a breath. Not that, anything but that. But Seraph's eyes were unblinking, ancient, immovable. Your empire will fade like dust in wind. She raised her hand, and a soft white pulse spread through the air, gentle, silent, devastating. Across the galaxy, archives flickered. Star maps rewrote themselves. Historical records rearranged. Military databases purged. Cultural libraries erased. Species across the galaxy looked at their maps and found nothing where the Kryloth Empire once stood. Entire star systems lost their labels. Trade routes vanished. Historical timelines skipped over centuries of Kryloth presence. It was as if the Empire had never been born. On Kryloth Prime, every citizen felt their identity tearing away like sand slipping through fingers. Their flags turned blank. Their monuments turned to smooth stone. Their anthem disappeared from memory. 1,000 years of history dissolved into emptiness. The Emperor screamed, not in anger, but in despair so deep it echoed through the palace like a dying star collapsing. Seraph stepped back. "This is the debt," she said softly. "Not death. Not destruction. Silence." The Emperor collapsed fully, face pressed against the cold stone floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Outside the palace, the humans stood among the Kryloth people in total silence, their glowing figures like ghosts of a lost world. And across the galaxy, billions watched humanity deliver a punishment no species had ever imagined, erasing an empire without killing a single soul. For 60,000 years, Earth had waited. Now the debt had been paid. But as Seraph Ashbourne looked toward the stars, her eyes darkened. Because she knew this was not the end. Humanity still had something left unfinished, something far greater than vengeance on the Kryloth. And the galaxy was not ready for what came next as the last echoes of the white pulse faded across the stars. The Kryloth Empire stood hollow and stripped, not by destruction, not by fire, not by war, but by absence, the kind of absence that steals meaning from existence. The citizens wept in silence, staring at blank banners where their symbols once lived, at empty pedestals where their heroes once stood, at history books now filled with smooth blank pages, as if their entire civilization had been carved out from the galaxy's memory by a careful, merciless hand. But humanity did not stay to watch their despair. The human figures who walked among them, glowing softly like the last memories of a dead world, turned away without a word. Humanity had collected its debt. There was nothing left to say. Commander Seraph Ashbourne stood at the center of Kryloth Prime's great plaza, her luminous figure surrounded by silent human warriors who radiated sorrow deeper than any night. The Kryloth gathered around, waiting for the final judgment, expecting perhaps a last warning or a final command. But Seraph spoke only a single sentence. "We do not rule you. We do not own you. We only remember what you forgot." Her voice drifted over the plaza like a cold wind, and then, in a flash of faint white light, the humans rose into the air, their forms dissolving into shimmering particles that floated upward into the sky before merging back into the colossal ships waiting above. Kryloth Prime watched in stunned silence as humanity ascended, leaving no footprints on the soil, no smoke in the air, no victory cry, only the unbearable weight of their presence. When the last glowing particle vanished, the human fleet shifted, engines humming like deep ocean tides rolling through the void. One by one, the living warships detached from orbit, their hulls glowing with soft pulses of white, like ancient hearts beating again after 60,000 years of silence. Across the galaxy, every species watched their departure through trembling screens. Entire civilizations held their breath. Alien leaders whispered to each other with shaking voices, "Will humans rule the stars now?" But humanity did not answer. They drifted away from Kryloth space like a funeral procession carrying the shadow of their lost world. On the bridge of Oblivion Prime, millions of humans stood in solemn silence, staring at the fading blue shape of Kryloth Prime in the distance. For a species who lost their home 60,000 years ago, this moment should have felt like closure. But instead of relief, only a heavy sadness filled the ship's core, an ancient wound that no revenge, no justice, no erasure could ever heal. A young human boy stood near a glowing window, clutching a small metallic charm shaped like Earth's outline. "Is it over?" he asked softly. Elder Mara, her eyes glowing faint silver, placed a hand on his shoulder. "For them," she whispered, "yes. For us, not yet." The boy looked up. "Why not?" Mara turned her gaze toward the deepest part of space, where a faint nebula pulsed like a sleeping giant. Her voice grew even softer. "Because we still do not have a home." The boy's fingers tightened around the charm. "But, will we build one?" Mara closed her eyes, sorrow thickening her voice. "We will try." At that moment, the entire human armada tilted in unison, redirecting toward the edge of the galaxy. And then something impossible happened. The stars around them bent. Space trembled. Wormholes destabilized. Entire constellations seemed to pulse like beating veins. Every species watching gasped. "What are they doing?" Scientists whispered across planets. "Where are they going?" But humanity did not transmit coordinates. They offered no explanation. They simply moved into a region of space no ship had ever entered, a forbidden stretch of the void known as the Pale Expanse, a place older than galaxies, a place where even ancient empires feared to look. As the armada approached, the nebula at the center of the expanse began to glow brighter, swirling like a cosmic storm waking from an eternal sleep. Something enormous lurked inside, bigger than a moon, bigger than a planet, bigger than any structure ever recorded. Alien telescopes struggled to focus, screens shaking with static, voices across the galaxy rising in panic. Is it a weapon? Is it a world? Is it alive? But within Oblivion Prime, Seraph Ashbourne stared at the structure with a silent, ancient recognition. The shape inside the nebula pulsed with a soft blue glow, the color of Earth's oceans. The elders gazed at it with heartbreak and awe. "So it is real," one whispered. Another choked, "We found it." The boy stepped closer to the window, his voice small. "What is that place?" Seraph answered him without looking away, her voice trembling for the first time since their return. "It is what remained when Earth died." The boy's heart stopped for a moment. "What do you mean?" Seraph whispered, "A fragment of Earth, broken, drifting, hidden inside a nebula for 60,000 years, protected by forces older than every empire alive." Across the galaxy, alien empires watched helplessly as the human fleet vanished into the glowing storm, swallowed whole by the ancient nebula. Every screen went dark. All signals cut off. Silence spread across the stars once more. Alien rulers turned to their advisors, pale and trembling. What happens now? No one had an answer. Because for the first time in 60 millennia, humanity was no longer the victim, no longer the avenger, no longer the ghost. Humanity was something new, a force that walked between light and darkness, carrying a grief that shaped the stars themselves. And somewhere inside that nebula, inside that forgotten fragment of their dead world, humanity began building something enormous, terrifying, beautiful, unknown. A home, or a weapon, or both. And as the galaxy trembled in dread and wonder, one truth echoed through every star system like a prophecy reborn. Humanity's story was not ending. It was just beginning. And no one, not even the stars themselves, knew what the next chapter would bring.